Good evening and welcome to the special meeting of the West Covina City Council for Monday, July 2nd. This meeting is being live broadcast on YouTube and can be found at westcovina.org/live. We are currently live and the meeting will begin shortly. Thank you for your patience.
Good evening and welcome to the Monday, July the 2nd, 2018, 6:30 p.m. special meeting, fiscal year 2018 and 2019 third preliminary budget workshop. The meeting will now come to order. I will be leading the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everybody please stand? Please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Assistant City Clerk, will you please have roll call?
Councilman Spence?
Here.
Councilmember Toma?
Here.
Councilmember Warshaw?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wu?
Yep.
Mayor Johnson?
Here. Tonight is a special meeting. We're going to be opening up with public comment, but please, I would like for everybody to remember, since this is a special meeting, the only things that we want you can speak about when you come up is what's on the agenda tonight. Thank you. Okay, now if you turned in a card to our Assistant City Clerk, she'll be calling you up in order that she received them. And remember, if you don't want to speak, and you want to fill out an orange card that we have up there, you're more than welcome to fill it out and hand it in to her, and she will put it into the minutes. So, Assistant City Clerk, will you please call the order, please?
First speaker tonight would be Ray Edmondson, followed by John Shoemaker.
Good evening. My name is Ray Edmondson. I'm a 20-year resident of West Covina. I didn't have a long comment tonight. I was just curious as to, I know bankruptcy is kind of our thing that we're trying to stave off or hit the guy next to us in the knee so that California figures out a way to bail out all the bankrupt cities later. If we don't manage to solve this in the next couple months, and I know bankruptcy is like a, like 8-9 month thing away, what is that going to look like for the city? Like, what are our contingency plans for it? I don't know like what you can legally say about pay cuts and who's going to get laid off, but do we have a contingency plan, and what is that landscape going to look like? Thank you.
John Shoemaker, followed by Jim Grivich.
Good evening. The person that just asked what would be the plans 8 or 9 months from now, you don't have a plan for 8 or 9 months ago, let alone 8 or 9 months into the future. I'm sitting here looking at this, and I'm going, maybe it's just this way staff writes that they're asking for guidance when the budget was supposed to be approved a couple days ago. You know, it seems like there'd be some things out here saying the areas we have to go and the things we have to do. And then to continue spending, is the spending at the adopted budget, meaning the original one? Or is the spending at the, with all the changes, that is spending at the $70 million a year rate? You know, because if you are going to be spending at the original $62 million, guess what? We don't have a problem. That means there's no problem there. But if you're spending at the adopted, which means all the amendments, you're spending at $69 to $70 million. Which means every day you go by is being added to the deficit. Is being added to the deficit. And for those of you who say, well, you know, we're just delaying a decision. You've made a decision. We're going to keep spending at last year's deficit. That was about $7 or $8 million. Maybe a little bit more. So you've made a decision. You know, it's amazing how many people think making the decision, that saying, well, we'll just continue on is not making a decision. No, that's making a decision, continue on. You know, I don't know what you guys are going to pull out of the hat. You know, as I've said and other people have said, you know, somebody could, you know, the magic tax fairy could drop in and give you $10 million and we'd be talking about the same thing next year. Because you'll run out and go, we'll make up for all the raises we didn't give people for 3 years, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and we'll be back here $6, $7, $8, $9 million back in the hole because you blew it. That's the issue. There is no reason we're in this position except for one. Staff and council members have continued to say, okay, let's do it. Nothing's wrong. You know, we're just going to continue spending. You know, and let's be honest. You know, I'd like somebody to just go, you know, this is a dog and pony show. In order to balance this budget, you have to make some reductions in some of the biggest areas. I think looked at some of the things that were going on, looking at the charts that were put out. You eliminate City Hall, you eliminate community services, completely shut it down. And we kind of almost break even. Kind of almost. Yeah, I mean, it's just unbelievable. How can you be sitting here on July 2nd and going, how are we going to address a budget shortfall for this year? Nobody realized it back in January. Nobody realized it back in December or February or March. Said, you know, we better get on the stick and do something. You know, maybe you guys ought to listen to some of the people who get up here and talk. You know, Mr. Grivich will be getting up here, has pointed out over the years that we're spending more money than we're bringing in. Considering what he did for, what, 30 plus years, might want to listen to him. Might want to listen to him. Where you had an easier out a while back, you don't have that same easy out, you know, unfortunately. Whether by design, whether by just ignoring it, or just listening to who you thought were the experts. You're here and it's a lot worse. You know, hopefully it doesn't end up in bankruptcy because, my God, what could happen there? You know, people's pensions could disappear. Contracts that people like disappear. But the one thing I press on you when it comes to when you're making some of these cuts is look at the number of hours you need to run the city, and eliminating 10% of the people doesn't eliminate those hours. And if it does, we wouldn't be in this problem, because I mentioned that many years ago. If you can get rid of those people when it's bad because you don't need them, you don't need them when they're good. That's how you keep yourself out of those situations. So, good luck.
Jim Grivich, followed by Bill Robinson.
Last time I talked to you about having a meaningful budget by saying that your budget policy is actually a directive to staff instead of a suggestion. I appreciate the council supporting my recommendation. Now I'd like to get into something that's very, very specific about the budget. Now that you have a real budget, you can actually use it to accomplish something. But in order to do that, you have to have essentially one basic rule in place that isn't currently in the budget policy. So I'm asking you to amend the budget policy and add one very important sentence. And the sentence is, expenditures shall be limited to the amount budgeted. It sounds so simple, but the city has not been doing that over the last 3 years by huge amounts of money, multi-million-dollar overdrafts. And my recommendation is you make it your policy that that won't happen again. That the city does whatever it needs to do to make sure that total expenditures stay within budget. That's pretty much it in terms of what I'm asking you to do. On this document that I gave you, I added another sentence, and the reason I did it was because the city has had a strange practice of waiting for millions of dollars of overdraft to accrue during the year as the year goes by, and then all of a sudden at the end of the year saying, okay, council, we have a $2 million whatever overdraft, and we want you to move money from the reserves to cover this overdraft. I think that's an inappropriate practice. The budget amount that's going to be spent should be anticipated at the beginning of the year, or at least 2 or 3 months in after you have a couple of payrolls. And the budget adjustments should be made then. I mean, at the end of the year, sure, sometimes you can miss it by a few $100,000, but not 2 million, 4 million. That just shouldn't happen. And anyway, so I'm asking that they also monitor expenditures and then make timely budget adjustments to ensure that there's adequate budget to cover expected expenditures. That's it. It's actually kind of simple when you think about the concept. And once you get control of your budget, then you actually can start doing something about this problem. But until you have control of it, nothing can be done. Thank you.
Last speaker is Bill Robinson.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm resident Bill Robinson. Happy Groundhog's Day. We have a $6.2 million deficit plus 1.4 million or more needed for adequate reserves. This issue never ends. There was this same discussion last year. This is a George Ogden article. The headlines is major cutbacks with fire and police for West Covina to make budget. This is last July. This is a misleading article because those budgets that are in the headlines, they never actually occurred. The problem is far worse this year. Little's been done since this council has come into power. Historically, before the infamous Toohey-Hereford administrations began, the city once had reserves of 55 million. That was told to me by a longtime resident. November voters will have an opportunity to repeal an unpopular gasoline tax measure foisted on citizens by SB 1. It seems all government levels now choose the easy solution of new taxes for fiscal problems, betraying the electorate, also demonstrating agency and fiduciary lack of integrity towards residents. Taxing and spending consistently, piling on bonded indebtedness so the next generation can take care of it. City staff's median income is probably $100,000 per year more than the West Covina residents that are supporting this city administration. Is poor planning and fiscal integrity among elected officials a long-term problem? If you want to be true problem solvers and public servants, you might try adopting the 10% solution that was mentioned months ago by staff and also one council member, I forget which. I'm here to advocate that you set up a WeTip hotline. That you could download the P3 Tips mobile app for Google Play or the Apple App Store, so city staff and any West Covina resident could anonymously, without being retaliated against or risk being fired, anybody could provide input to the council on how to efficiently cut this budget. Because I mean, if you don't do anything, and if you just keep, this has been going on for 3 years and the problem's only getting worse. So if you don't do anything, at least you could establish the WeTip anonymous hotline so you could get input from city staff without threat of retaliation, and then analyze the results and figure out how to cut the budget. Because if you just keep on going, it's not going to go away. This has been going on for years, over and over and over again. And so far, you guys are 3 years into the administration, and I can't see any progress at all. I mean, Are you going to do it again this year? You've done it 2 years already. I mean, read this article from last year. This is misleading because the headlines, fire and police weren't cut. You can get an anonymous WeTip hotline and provide input and then do something instead of, you know, some people might think you're rubber stamps, that you're not problem solvers. So my conclusion in 25 seconds is the WeTip implementation to establish the 10% cut back on everything across the board. I suggest maybe as fiscal restraint that you stop paying overtime. That way you don't have to lay anybody off. But ask for anonymous input and then analyze that input so you can figure out what to do. Thank you.
Last speaker card is from Chris Miller.
Council, mayor, city staff, residents of West Covina. It's kind of sad seeing today that people on our city care more about homeless, Trader Joe's, and other things than our budget. I did some quick research today before coming over, and I pulled down some data from Transparent California, which I had to exclude the fire department from because I'm comparing against Baldwin Park, and a lot of the data now for the fire department is redacted from Transparent California. West Covina has 107,000 residents. We have 841 workers with fire, without, or at least I cut what I thought was fire, 456 in 2016. Total employee cost base was 19.6 million, 3 million overtime, so this is police and city, not fire, 35.4 million with pension, so that's total cost, 35.4 million. Of that, police, 10.8 million base, 2.8 million overtime, so only 200,000 went to city, and 23 million total with pension. Of that, 59 officers, 10 sergeants, 7 lieutenants, 14 sergeants, there must be a mistake there, 16 corporals, and 161 public safety total. Baldwin Park, 76,000 residents in the 2015 census, 12.7 million base pay, 1.2 million overtime, 20.2 total with pension for 400 workers. So for 56 workers more, we pay 15 million total extra. Police was half of what West Covina was at 6.9 million base, 1.1 million overtime, 11.8 total with pensions, for only 10 less officers of a total of 49, 10 sergeants, so I think there's my mistake, I copied over from Baldwin Park, so we have 14 sergeants and Baldwin Park has 10, 4 lieutenants, and 105 total public safety people. So for 61 more people and only 10 more officers, we're paying double of what Baldwin Park does. Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Jefferson.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Please fill out the card when you get done.
I will.
Thank you.
This is just critique. It's kind of spilled milk because we're so far along in this budget process. But earlier in the process, I came and we had an exchange with Mr. Freeland, with the manager, and it seemed like a workshop. It seemed like the public was able to participate. The last two I've attended have been titled the same, but they've been public hearing. And I understand this is a formal hearing, so it may lend itself for this sort of logistics. However, the presentation I believe you're going to show us tonight, I think would be more fitting to show it to us before public testimony, so we can have something to input with regards to. We're kind of left out in the dark. You have closed sessions. We're not privileged to that information. And before coming up here tonight, those that did, as myself, are not privileged with the information that we're going to be shown, but not given the opportunity to assimilate and hopefully intelligently respond to. It's just a critique. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager, do you have any comments for the residents at Fort?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe I'll be able to answer Mr. Grivich's comments during the discussion of budget policy. There was a question regarding what is a continuing resolution. That's based on the adopted budget from last year. That's what's in the heading of the resolution. And that will continue until a successor budget is approved or council decides not to move forward with a continuing resolution, which we do need in order to continue operations of the business. With regards to comments about bankruptcy, yeah, we're not even having those discussions yet because we're trying to do everything we can to prevent the city going to bankrupt. But in the bankruptcy process, the only winners are going to be the attorneys. Because at the end of the day, all it really does is allows, what's that?
And I don't do that.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it just allows you to open up your contracts during bankruptcy. As of right now, until we'll see what the courts rule, pensions are protected under bankruptcy. So it'd be the opportunity to discuss, you know, salaries and benefits of employees, the contracts we have for services to the city. Those are really all that bankruptcy allows us to do is open those up and renegotiate that. But we're trying to do everything we can to avoid that because, again, what I mean by the attorneys is the attorneys are the ones coming in, negotiating all those contracts and charging their billable hour to do so. So at the end, at that point, you know, right now we're trying to do what we can as a city to maintain and preserve the reserves. And if we get to that word we don't want to get to, that means we have no reserves. And so it's easier to make the challenging decisions today versus in the future. And then, Mr. Mayor, if you're ready to go on to the rest of the agenda, I'd like to make some changes to the structure of that.
Please do.
Okay. So before you this evening, we have on the consent calendar the continuing resolution, as well as the budget policy itself, and then a presentation on the fiscal year 18-19 budget. What I'd like to do is eliminate the consent calendar altogether, not have a consent calendar, and take each item individually. If we can, we'll discuss the continuing resolution at the end of the budget discussion this evening, depending on how far we get tonight. The first thing, if the council wishes to, we can go into the discussion on the budget policy itself. And then afterwards, we'll go into a discussion of the fiscal year 18-19 budget. So whatever the privilege or of the council is, that's what staff would recommend.
Do we have any objections to it? See none.
Okay. So if we can, Mr. Mayor, we'll start with the budget policy.
Hold on one second.
Nope.
Did you point out the closed session?
No. Yeah. Actually, I was going to discuss as we get to the budget, but I'll address it now. We are currently scheduled to have closed session and open session at the same time. We are. And so the purpose of that is as we go through the discussions that may have impacts on employees, that the city council, if they wish for better clarification, that we will recess into closed session so we can give that information to them behind closed doors. And the reason we do that is because it is subject to the meet and confer process. It's not that we don't want to share it with folks, it's just we can't do that yet. And so if the council, as we talk about different reductions in expenditures that could impact the current employees, we will ask the council to go on recess if they wish to do so. With that, Mr. Mayor, if we can talk about the budget policy. Just as a reminder for the public, the city has, on June 11th, 2018, the city council was presented with a draft budget policy. This is the last of the policies that was recommended under the state audit we had done a few years back. At your June 11th meeting, there was some comment that there was too many shoulds in the document and that we should be replacing those shoulds with will or shall or leave should in where appropriate. So staff has gone back, made amendments to the policy that we believe are sufficient. I don't believe that there was any additional comments about the should, wills, and woulds unless the council does. I do, with regards to the speaker's comments, I do believe goal number 4, which is page 16, 17, and 18 of your budget, for the most part addresses the speaker's concerns. If the council wishes to amend any of those policies, we'll be more than happy to address it at that time. I have had a chance to speak to that speaker regarding the anomaly we had last year with the fire department overtime, which is, I know that has been one of the main concerns that he expressed last year. So with that, Mr. Mayor, if you wish to address any specifically into the policy, otherwise any appropriate action is appropriate at this time.
Does any of the council members have any questions about the budget policy right now? Councilman Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'd like to make some additional changes, starting with policy purpose, line number 8. I think it should, instead of saying the City Council does adopt broad goals, I think it should say the City Council adopts broad goals.
Okay.
Page 3, line 8. I've got a bunch of these. I don't know if you want me to go through them all, and then we'll decide.
Please go through them if you want, and then we can decide, unless the council has objection with each one. Okay, why don't you read them all, then we'll go through them at the same time.
Page 5, line 18, first sentence. The inventory of programs and services, I think that should be will, not shall. And also line 80, instead of should, that should be will. On page 6 of 18, line 129, instead of this, the city should, I think it just say this, the city identifies broad goals.
Yes.
Get rid of, yeah.
Just say city identifies?
Yeah, the city identifies broad goals, right. Same page, line 144, instead of shall, I think that should be will. Page 7, line 162, stabilization funds, and identifies the purpose instead of identify. Let's see, page 9, line 249, instead of should, I think it should be must recognize the linkage. Page 11, line 313, instead of city manager should address, I think it should, instead of to, I think it should say the city manager will address any deviation. And that's it.
Is there any council members having comments on Councilman Warshall's wanting to change those few words? To me, they seem like they make sense in that. Any other councilmen have any comments on it? If not,
Mr. Mayor, if I can ask for clarification on the second correction that Mr. Warshall presented.
Page, let's see.
Was on page 5, you said?
yeah, page 5, 78.
Yeah.
Line 80, I have that, but was there another 78 you said as well?
Line 78, the inventory of programs and services will instead of shall. And also line 80, will instead of should.
Right, we did define shall and will at the beginning as the same, but if you want to change it, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's easy enough. All right.
Okay, Mr. Mayor. Okay. For example, on the item number 4, okay, they say you change it to will be continuously, okay, evaluate. Which one is stronger? Shall be continuously or will be? I think will be is like future. You should do. You will. But should meaning you must. continuously. So I don't know why you changing a lot of things from should become will. I feel like will is like is much softened than you should do it, you must do it. Okay, we must follow the policy. We must have a transparency. It should be must rather than will. Okay, so I don't know. Is that why we changing to so many everything to will? Maybe city attorney can explain to us.
Yeah, just quickly. In California statutory law, should is typically interpreted as directory, and shall or will is considered mandatory.
Thank you.
Councilman Spence.
Yeah, I had a couple comments, and I was thinking about this actually on the way over here as I was pondering, throughout this process at the beginning, we talk about stakeholders, involving stakeholders. When we define stakeholders, as anyone that has an interest in the budget, employee representatives, the media, all that kind of stuff, other governments, and in reality, I was thinking the only stakeholders that we really should be focusing on are the citizens of the city of West Covina. I mean, those are the stakeholders. Those are the people that we're supposed to be providing services for. And, so I was kind of, perplexed because I was trying to figure out I don't know if the council is in agreement with that the citizens aren't the only ones we're supposed to be working for, but that, we involve a lot of people in the process to develop goals that really, they could take another job somewhere else. They could, they don't live here. They're an elected official, some other entity, have other interests than the city of West Covina. And we really should, when I define the word stakeholder, it should be the citizens of West Covina. It should be the words instead of stakeholders. Because stakeholders, to me, seems it's much broader than who we should be focusing on, and I think it dilutes our goals if our goals are to help the citizens of West Covina. So I mean, if we define stakeholders as change that to the citizens of West Covina, to me that makes more sense than it is, involving all these other people that may or may not, have different interests to the city.
The only problem I have, you need to list others because not everyone's a citizen of West Covina that is interested in the city.
Well, and I think that's great. But I think the focus of the city council should be the citizens of West Covina. I mean, there's lots of people that are interested in the city of West Covina. That's why we get bids on lots of contracts. That's why we get, lots of people that want to get other things here. So, I mean, I get that other people are interested in West Covina, but I'm talking about there's people interested in West Covina, but what are the interests of West Covina? Should they be the interests of those people, or should they be the interests of the people that live here? Should they be the citizens? That's the real question.
What about the business owners?
Huh? Well, business owners, but their interests are their business, and I think that's great. And and I'm interested in them too. But I still think that they actually, what we're elected to do is to serve the citizens of the city of West Covina, not the media, not other governments, not all these other people.
Is there a definition?
Yeah, the definition in your introduction. Yeah. And I just think, the word stakeholders, we're not here for, no offense, we're not here for the employees. The employees are here for the citizens of West Covina. And so, we should be focusing on what the citizens of West Covina want or need based on our evaluation of goals rather than all the other outside interests. And so I don't like that definition of the word stakeholder.
I mean, I haven't looked at it through this lens. I think that residents are a priority all the time myself. I agree with that. I just don't know if by defining stakeholders as only residents, then you have a budget that doesn't take into consideration business owners and property owners in West Covina too, who may not be residents. So I don't know how we want to do it. We could say something that says the focus or the primary
well, I think there's an assumption
persons are the residents. They're listed first. We can say something that makes that more clear, but I wouldn't want to exclude other people who are interested because there's a lot of business owners in West Covina and they are affected by our budget. So I don't care how we prioritize it or say that they're a priority. I think that's totally fine.
But I think there's an assumption in your comments that the citizens of West Covina aren't concerned about the businesses or the property owners in West Covina. I think there's an assumption in that, and I don't agree with that. I think that the citizens of West Covina are concerned about the businesses in West Covina. I hear that all the time. You know, when one closes or what businesses are coming here, citizens are concerned about it. So I don't think that excludes property owners or business owners, but, you know, at the same time, we should be focusing on the citizens of West Covina, not all these outside elected officials and stuff like that. I mean, you know, like I said, citizens are concerned about businesses. Absolutely they are. Absolutely. And so that doesn't preclude us from doing stuff, dealing with that. It just means that as a city council, our focus is actually going to be, I don't know, on the city. It's kind of like, you know, I know it's a philosophical thing. I know some people don't agree with that. You know, I remember a conversation with an assemblywoman who was talking about this great tax increase that the legislature did, and she said the city was going to get all this money, and I said, I don't care. What do you mean I don't care about the city getting all this money? You're taking it from hardworking people. And she goes, well, you represent the city. And I said, no, I don't. I represent those people. You know, it's a different philosophy. Some people think they represent, you know, the entity they're elected to. Some people think they represent people. I think we represent people. And, you know, that's why I don't know. I don't like that definition of stakeholders. I think it should be focused on citizens of West Covina. You know, if you want to say, you know, citizens in business or whatever, I don't know. I just think business is obviously an outgrowth of that.
Just like on something, you know, you'd have to think through, just on something simple like disseminate goals and review with stakeholders. So then that would mean that we wouldn't want businesses to review the budget, even though they're going to be affected by it. I mean, that's in the policy. So again, no, I'm looking at page 6. It says disseminate goals and review with stakeholders. So if you define stakeholders as being just residents or just citizens, that means you don't disseminate goals or review with anybody else. So I mean, conceptually, I agree. The residents are our most important people affected by the budget, but there's this whole policy where you have stakeholders in different places. So if you're saying we're only going to define stakeholders as residents, then you're excluding a bunch of people who have an interest and are impacted by our budget policy. And we could put, yeah.
Mr. Mayor, if it makes it easier, perhaps something along the lines of the term stakeholder refers to anyone affected by or has stake in the city of West Covina with priority to West Covina residents and businesses. And scratch out the rest of the verbiage. So we have stakeholders as anyone affected, and that's a very broad general term, but yet the focus is on the residents and businesses of our community.
I like that because as I'm reading it, the part, and I have to agree with part about with Councilman Spence, was that the term stakeholder refers to anyone affected by or has a stake in the city of West Covina. This term includes, but is not limited to the residents. I have a problem with that. It says it's not limited to the residents. I think that makes a little bit more sense. We put the residents ahead of it, and then it also includes what we said on it. But I do think we do have to really emphasize the residents on this, because those, all in all, the business are one of our big concerns. But each of us, when we was campaigning, we said that we're here representing the residents of West Covina, and then the businesses afterwards. So my main concern should be residents first. So if we can reword it something like that, I think that'd be great. So it's up to whatever the council thinks. Any other comment?
I'm fine with it.
Everybody's fine with what the city manager said? Would you repeat that again?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. The term stakeholder refers to anyone affected by or has a stake in the city of West Covina with priority to residents and West Covina businesses.
Any comment? Sounds good to me. Anybody have more comments?
It's better. It's better than it was. Better than
it is better. Okay? All right. Are you okay with that?
Well, I have other questions too.
Okay, go right ahead. What's your next one?
Let's go to right here. Let's turn to the page where we were. The where were we at when we ended with Mr. Warshaw? Where is it? What page was that?
The last one?
Yeah. Okay, because that's where I had the same different comment. Yeah, on 11. When it talks about the city, the last bullet on 315, it says the city has instituted procedures to review the budget quarterly and decide on actions to bring the budget into balance if necessary. And I'm not sure, you know, in most of the places we talk about this, I'm not sure what that means that we have. I mean, the city by itself can't do that, or are we talking about the city council? Because I think, only the city council can make those kinds of changes, right, to bring things into balance, or how does that work? I guess I'm trying to, because it says the city manager should address any deviation of the budget to actual report, and then it says i.e. budget amendments. So it sounds like there, if there's a deviation, we do budget amendments rather than maybe stop the spending increases, or if there's something going on there. I'm just trying to figure out how those two things on budgetary compliance work.
I think that is under the develop management strategies. That's for the staffing. I think, as brought up earlier, develop a budget consistent with approaches to achieve goals. So you're not 3. 4, evaluate the performance and make adjustments. I think that will cover all of the requests, because we do present a quarterly update to the city council on the budget, right. And we do budget amendments throughout the course of the year as some things come up that aren't expected. So when the quarterly budget review comes up, that's when the council can make determinations if they wish to make adjustments to the budget at that time.
Right, but there's other options in the budget amendments, right?
Well, that's part of the quarterly review.
Yeah, that's just, but when it says that, when we talk about addressing deviations in the budget, aren't there other options than budget amendments?
Well, I think the IE, this is just an example.
Right. And so what are the examples?
Actually, you don't even need to have that in there, I don't think.
Well, and that gets actually, and Mr. Grivich, he has language here, but that's actually one thing that I noticed in this whole process is there's no goal in here to have necessarily a balanced budget or to say we're going to spend just up to what we're receiving in. There's no actual goal in our budget policy that says we're going to have a balanced budget. And if that's not, I was looking at this, setting goals and all these things are good, but shouldn't one of our goals be that we're going to have a fiscally responsible balanced budget? And we also don't have in here that we're going to maintain the reserve levels and as part of our goals and things like that.
Councilmember Spence?
Yes.
I believe page 8, line 204 might be something that
204.
Line 204.
The city defines its balanced operating budget and uses the resources for operating purposes. Well, then if that does not exceed the resource of the budget period, okay, well, we don't do that. So we're committed to a balanced budget under normal circumstances. So whatever abnormal circumstances, I guess. Well, see, I think we should take some of that out. And I think one of the first things we should highlight is that we're going to have a balanced budget. That should be the #1 goal, period. We're going to have a balanced budget. We're going to operate within our means. We're going to, maintain whatever reserve level we're supposed to according to our policies, right? They've been adopted by us. That should actually be what the first goal is make sure we have that. Make sure we do not spend above our means. So I don't know how we create a different goal. I know Mr. Grivich had, I guess this is a 401B, but to me it seems like up front we should be up front with ourselves and the public. We're going to have a balanced budget. We're going to do what it takes to have a balanced budget, and and then we'll deal with it. Because developing goals are good, but developing goals are great. We could develop all kinds of goals that cost all kinds of money. We're going to talk about a homeless plan in the next, right? Even though LA County already adopted their budget, we're going to talk about a homeless plan that, in theory, there's a lot of money that could be spent there, right? But we know we're not getting that money. So you make choices based on your, income. And that should be our #1 goal, is to make sure that we have a balanced budget. And, and that's not highlighted in here. Instead, we're talking about establishing goals as our #1 priority. Our #1 priority should be fiscal responsibility and not just goals. So I'd like to, I didn't get a chance to write down language, but I do think that should be our first goal. And we have policies in place, right, about reserve levels and things like that, don't we? And those should be included in that. So I don't know how the rest of the council feels about that, but.
Well, what are you asking for it to do?
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
Suggestion?
Well, our suggestion is that we tell staff to come back with goal #1 being we're going to have a balanced budget. We're going to have these reserve levels. We're going to do this.
Mr. Mayor, I disagree with that. There are going to be times over years, especially during recessions, and you have a reserve because there will be times that you won't have a balanced budget. You will project on your spending, just as Mr. Griffith says, expenditures shall be limited to the amount budgeted. All right? The amount budgeted isn't necessarily what your income is. Incomes can change. And there will be some times that you have to use reserves to balance that budget. So I don't think you can just say every time we're always going to have a balanced budget, because you aren't. The way that cities have to operate, you have to keep minimum, when you have your own police and fire department, you have to keep minimum staffing. Things can happen. You need to keep making corrections during the year, but it's not necessarily going to be a balanced budget.
Any other comment? You want to say something? Go ahead. No.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I want to make a motion to adopt Mr. Greenwich regarding his additional statement into the section 40IB regarding the expenditure should be limited to the amount budgeted. Okay, basically, with the entire paragraph insert into the item number 4.
I'll second it.
We have a first and second. Any other comment? Seeing none, we have a roll call.
You didn't propose amendments.
I didn't.
You didn't oppose any amendments? No,
The verbiage changes.
That's the first one.
Yeah.
No, the verbiage.
Just doing the amendment.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Okay, we have a roll call, please.
Spence? Aye. Toma?
Aye.
Warshaw?
No.
Wu?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye. It passes 4-1. Next, this is what we have. Is there any other comments for the budget policies? If anybody wants to make any changes, or are we happy with the changes that we made, or we want to move any further? Okay, take a minute. Councilman Toma.
So the policy on stabilization funds, is that the reserve? Is that basically on goal number 2, page 7 of 18? Stabilization funds, is that like a fund balance reserve? Or is that a different term for it?
Yes, Councilmember Toma.
Then the policy on debt issuance and management. I know we've talked about debt and it's come up at various times while we've been here, but I don't remember looking at a specific policy on debt issuance and management. Do we have that? And if so, is it on our website or is it available?
We have the debt management policy that will be, effective July 1st, 2018. It is an internal document that we had circulated as a response to the audit items from the State Controller's Office, so we have addressed that.
We can make that available on the website if the council wishes.
I thought all our responses to the state auditor stuff was on there. It was on the website, right? I thought all the responses to the state audit we put in online, weren't we?
I don't think all the policies, some of our administrative policies that are not.
I thought we put all the responses to every single one of those things online.
The responses we did, but not every single policy out there.
Okay. Okay, I thought we had done that. Because we should do that.
Okay, Mr. Mayor. Okay, I have a question. Okay, and who create this policy, budget policy? Where this template coming from? Okay, and do we compare with other cities with their budget policy? Okay, meaning we have really a good budget policy we can follow. So maybe the first question will be the answer from the city manager or from our consultant who made this, and is this a good policy? Okay, because you guys should know much more than us. This should be a policy, but this still have a lot of confusion. Okay, we have up and down. So hopefully you can answer.
Well, I can let Judy answer this, but this is actually the policy that's presented by the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States. So this is a policy and a template that's used by other cities throughout the United States, correct? And so this is the best practice, and so that we've adopted that best practice.
The question, have you compared with this other city, for example, their policy, is it similar, or okay, this is really complete, okay, and this is really in the detail that can protect, okay, for us to follow, okay, the future, the policy, and that we don't have a lot of issue that currently we have.
So correct. So when when the GFOA, Government Finance Officers, puts out a template policy, that's the template that all the other cities in the United States use, and they'll tweak it like we've done this evening to best fit the needs of West Covina.
So this current budget policies come from our consultant, okay, you create for us?
No, it comes from an association that finance directors, not just Ms. Lancaster uses, but the finance director in Covina, Baldwin Park, and other cities will use as their template. And then cities are tasked with, you know, making the fine touches to accommodate what the needs are in their community. Yep.
Are there any other questions? If not, do we have any motion for the budget policy?
I don't think we voted on the recommendations that I asked for.
No, we adopted amendment. We haven't adopted the policy.
No, we haven't adopted.
The amendment we did was not part of my recommended changes.
No, I understand that. I understand that. What I understood the motion to be was that you were just voting on including that amendment, not adopting the policy as a whole with your changes. So.
Okay, we need to have a motion to adopt the policy with the changes that were asked by Councilman Warshaw.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Okay, Councilman Smith, for you.
If we adopt this tonight, which things are we complying with that are in here? Because we're adopting a budget policy, we haven't adopted a budget yet, and so, you know, which things in here would we are not compliant on as soon as we adopt it?
Well, again, we'll have to go back through and start assessing it, but I do believe that it says in there about, you know, it's the goal to have an adopted fiscal year budget, but it's not a necessity. And that's why we have the continuing resolution.
But what about all the others? What about all the
We'll
other
have to go in and identify each one.
So we don't know which ones.
No, we weren't sure which ones would be adopted yet.
Right, but we don't have a cursory look of which ones we.
We have not.
Okay.
Okay, quick questions. Okay, if we approve the budget policy today, and then one day we find out maybe say some of the issue, can we just change? Okay, can we have a bring back to say, hey, we might have to change this and that? Okay, so this is just approved for tonight, not necessarily we have to bind by this, meaning we approve today, but in the future we can still amend it.
So by being a policy, it's a guideline for the staff and the council as we move forward for the budget of the city. But this council and future councils are always welcome to amend it.
Oh, excuse me, can I, Mr. Chairman? It's not a guideline, it's policy. It's what has to be done, it's not a guideline. Guidelines are things that you don't necessarily have to follow. It's a policy, you're supposed to follow it. That's why I'm asking how many things, we aren't going to be compliant in as soon as we say aye on this policy. And that actually concerns me, that I have no idea, what parts we're able to do, what parts we're not able to do as soon as we adopt this.
Well, if it's council's desire, we can go through each of the policies and make that determination tonight.
I'd like to know that. I mean, I'd like to know that. I'd like to know ahead of time, what we're not going to be compliant with, as soon as I say aye. I don't think it's unreasonable.
Well, we have to go back to Councilman Warshaw. He made a motion. Would you want to hold off on the motion so we can do this, or what? You made the motion? What do you want to do?
I'm fine with holding off if you want to.
Okay. Let's do it then. Let's go through each of the policies that we're not going to be compliant with.
All right, Mr. Mayor, do you want to start with goal number 1, page 4 of 18? All right, so pleasure of the council, read through each one, we'll make determination. All right. Goal number 1, establish broad goals to guide city decision making. I, assess community needs, priorities, challenges, and opportunities. So underneath that, on line 39, A, identify stakeholder priority needs and concerns. First bullet point is the city council meetings are open forum, providing opportunity to stakeholders to bring forth concerns, needs, and priorities. Are you asking staff, or is this a discussion?
Staff, right? So you do this. I mean, the city council meetings are open, and we've done some open meetings on that. I do agree with JD. We should let people talk at some point after some of the presentations of these special meetings. It probably would be better after they have information. But are you satisfied with that? I mean, Mr. City Manager, are you satisfied with that? I mean, that's what I want to know, is what things in here do we not do, and which things
Well,
we do?
I think that we abide by the Brown Act, and these are public meetings where we have public comment, so I think that is a public forum, unless council thinks otherwise.
I actually think we do better than the Brown Act, but the Brown Act's very limiting, actually, so. Go ahead.
So we're good there? Okay. The next bullet point, among other mechanisms that might be considered are special public hearings, surveys, meetings of leading residents and resident interest groups, city strategic planning processes, meetings with city employees, and workshops involving city administrative and or the city council. And I think we do that as well.
Any questions?
Okay.
All right, next.
Item B, evaluate the community condition, external factors, opportunities, and challenges. The City Council will regularly collect and evaluate information about trends in the community condition, external factors affecting it, opportunities that may be available, and problems and issues that need to be addressed.
Any questions? Seeing none?
Okay. Next item, some mechanisms will involve data gathering from pre-existing sources or through opinion surveys.
Any questions? Okay, next.
Other mechanisms will be subjective, such as observing physical characteristics of geographic areas within a community or talking to residents, experts, businesses, and community leaders and legislative bodies. Formal studies of particular issues or trends may also be undertaken.
Next.
Okay. The frequency and extensiveness of the evaluation should be consistent with how frequently the information changes and the relative importance of the information being gathered.
So what have we learned from that, from those last 3 bullet points that we would be using when we adopt this budget, when we come to this budget?
So some mechanisms will involve data gathering from pre-existing sources or through opinion surveys.
Yeah,
we've done the Survey Monkey in the past. For our budget priorities. We use data from pre-existing sources like PERS and other agencies, which we get from HDL. So a lot of that is collected on a regular basis.
Okay, and what other things, I want to know, I guess, what in the current budget that you proposed then, took those into account, and what items were they?
So you can look at, if you want to, park development fees. We look at the physical characteristics of the community and where we can spend those funds. We look at the maintenance districts. Those are our geographical locations. We identify where those funds go to. So I think that's all part of the data we collect.
Okay, so that's what you think that means?
Well, it talks about physical characteristics and geographic areas of the community.
And so it's the maintenance districts?
No, I'm just saying that's part of you asked for examples, that's one of them.
I'm trying to figure out what part of that we include in the budget then, that's all. Okay.
And then if we go down to item number II, line 63, identify opportunities and challenges for city services, capital assets, and management. So underneath that, the first item is A, assess services and programs and identify issues, opportunities, and challenges. The first bullet point under that, the city shall inventory and identify and assess the programs and services that it provides, their intended purpose, and the factors that could affect their provision in the future.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
When in the introduction you're talking about the shell and the well is basically the same, but why you here you use shell and then the second one you use well?
Again, the council can change it however we want. We just said they're both the same. It's just verbiage,
curious.
just the wording of the verbiage.
Should be consistent. If it's shell, then shell. If well is well. Because since in the beginning you say they both the same, and the city attorney already said to concur this same thing. But why we always have shell and well? Randomly all the places. Okay, that's just my question. Okay, if they are the same meaning, why not we just shell all the way or well all the way? Okay, if they are the same meaning.
Again, that's the priority of the council. If they wish to do that, we can do that.
I don't myself. I kind of agree a little bit on that because it's shall and will. In other words, we're saying that it will be done, and so I think we look at all the other ones that we've changed. on it. Councilman Warshaw wanted the will. I think we should change this one too. I don't have a problem with it. It's not that big of a thing. I agree with you. The shall to will.
So all shalls be changed to will.
All shalls be changed to will.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, well.
Speaking to, I like shall. Shall make stronger. Will is like will be, okay, well, in the future I will. But shall says you have to do it. So I don't know, for me, I know even the attorney say this is the same meaning, but I don't know, I feel like shall is much stronger than I will, okay? I will do this, or I shall do this. So, well, anyway, it's subject to all the college council to decide.
It's kind of funny. I'm the only lawyer in this group. I don't really care about it. Yeah. It says it's synonymous. I think it's a matter of like what people are comfortable with. It says in the introduction it defines shall and will as being synonymous. So I don't care. We can do shall. We can do will. It means the same thing. So it's whatever you're comfortable. I think sometimes it sounds better in the context of a given sentence. So I think that's why it was done here. But it clearly says in the definition, shall and will mean that shall be viewed as synonymous, which is somebody wrote that in there. So whatever you guys want to do, I don't care. It means the same thing.
Mr. Mayor, I mean, the shall and will debate is obviously very fascinating. But I would say that this is one item I'm not sure that we do. When we got our budget, I'm not sure that there was an inventory that assessed the programs and the services it provides. When we got that, we just got numbers and what the programs were. We didn't get an evaluation of those programs. And whether or not they still serve the people, the next one, I don't think this is one that we did when we got that budget or when we've done those budget hearings.
Mm-hmm. I would disagree with you because what we've done is we've asked all of the directors or our chiefs to do that and present a budget to us that has done this already. And then if we wanted more information on a particular item, we always ask for it. So I think we are doing that.
Well, I'd like to see those assessments.
It doesn't say the city council will do all of these.
No, it says the city, and you're
right.
responsible
Well,
for that. But I mean, I haven't seen. When I look at this, when I look at item A, I have not seen an inventory of all the programs and services, and the people responsible for service delivery, and an evaluation of the factors that should be undertaken. All those kinds of things. I haven't seen that. This is pretty comprehensive, and I don't think I've seen anything like that when we talk about our budget.
It doesn't say that.
We just get numbers.
It doesn't say the city council will do it. It doesn't say it in here. It says the city will do it, and I think that is being done, as I said, by our directors, by our chiefs, by staff. If we want more information, we always have the ability to ask for it.
Then can I get a copy of the inventory, please, then? And can I get a copy of these inventories that were taken?
City Manager.
Yes, we can give you inventories of what we have prepared as part of this year's part of the budget, but I will say that we haven't done every single program. I can say we haven't done every single program. But as part of, as part of the review, we did review whether or not it's cost effective to do certain programs. Good example is daycare programs. Does it make sense to offer the daycare program at the continuing at each of the sites that we're doing? So we are evaluating those as we move along. But this is also, the budget policy is also establishing, when we meet as a council to start establishing council goals and objectives, some of these projects will be part of those goals and objectives moving forward as well, for some of the ones that we may be deficient on.
What I'm asking is not, have we been doing this as a policy that we're trying to set tonight? Is this what we're saying we want done going this day forward? Am I correct in saying that? So each one of these things we're going through, maybe we haven't done exactly what it says there. But what we're setting the policy tonight is what we're telling everybody, this is what we plan on doing in the future. The things that we change and the things that we accept tonight is the direction we're giving the staff, this is what will be done.
I tend to disagree with that because we're working on a budget now and we're saying we're going to use these policies. So you can't do it after the budget. But I think we are doing this. It's a matter of definition. This doesn't say that the city council will get all of these. It says the city will.
Well,
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, I think we need to put some sort of time limit on this, and if we're not going to be able to figure this policy out, I think we should continue it until after we deal with the actual budget, because I think that's the much bigger priority for everybody at this time. So if there's going to be quibbles about word choices and whether we're doing it or not doing it, I think we need to put that off, because there are far more important things that we have to deal with right now.
Mr. Mayor,
I'm sorry.
Perhaps if the council is okay with the changes that Mr. Warshaw presented, perhaps you want to have a subcommittee of council members who want to go through and provide direction on this, so we can bring it back at a future meeting? I'm not sure what it is that council wishes to do.
I do agree with that, but I think, so we had a motion by Councilman Warshaw to make those amendments to it. Do I get a second on that one?
We're just making his amendments?
Yeah.
Just his amendments, because we already passed the other one. If no, I don't hear, I'll second the motion. Okay, we have a first and a second. We have a roll call on the amendments that Councilman Warshaw made to the policy.
Spence? Toma?
Aye.
Warshaw?
Aye.
Wu?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye. Passes 5-0. Okay,
But
so
if we're gonna
we're gonna put this one off. We're gonna hold off on this until afterwards. Is that what we want to do?
Either after the actual budget.
After the actual.
Okay, so
Until
we'll
we
come
have
back and
another
perhaps revisit this
suggestion.
later tonight or in a future.
If we have
Well, you know,
time
and
tonight.
if we could just get an evaluation, I'm fine getting an evaluation on what things we haven't done, but I think, you know, I kind of agree with Mr. Warshaw, but he says we do it, but the city manager says we don't do it on every single thing. So, I mean, I just want to know what we haven't done, because once we adopt this, we don't have a budget, we should be, focused on this. And, I mean, I just want to know what we're not doing. That's, that's in here as soon as we adopt it. So that's all.
Okay. So that one passes 5. So now we're going to move to item number 2, to resolution to continue fiscal year 2017-2018 appropriations.
If we can
City
hold
manager.
that until after we have the discussion on the budget, please.
Okay. So now we're going to go to Department Matters. So that's that was the bottom of the consent calendar. So we're going to move to the fiscal year 2018-19 third preliminary budget workshop.
That's perfect.
Okay. Who's going to give the staff report?
I'll do a brief introduction first to show with the public how we got where we are today. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor, City Council. Tonight's budget presentation will be a summary of the actions from your May 14th as well as your June 11th budget meetings. Staff was not providing any additional questions from City Council members prior to tonight's meeting, so staff is ready to move forward with a variety of recommendations for the City Council's considerations. First, staff has reviewed and revised revenue and expenditure projections based on new information provided to the city. An example is we just received word from Animal Care and Control that they are increasing their costs to the city substantially, which I think is around 25% or well over $100,000 increase to provide animal care and control to the city. An increase in our insurance costs from BICEP, that went up additionally as well by I think 25%. Staff also revised overtime numbers in police and fire to have a better reflection on actual anticipated costs. Staff has also prepared a sequence of recommendations to help significantly close the budget gap tonight through restricting of staffing of public safety and public works, as well as the 10% cuts that were made previously at the other meetings. As these changes impact current employee agreements, these changes may not be done immediately, but direction is needed in order to capitalize on savings to the city. If there are specific questions about the staffing changes, we are asking City Council to break into closed session for a more detailed discussion as we discussed at the beginning of tonight's meeting. And again, as a reminder, closed session has been agendized for tonight for that purpose. Additional revenue ideas are also presented to help close the gap, including revisiting the restructuring of the business license tax. Not including this in the proposed budget will require further cuts in operations and in services. The city also needs to look at short and long-term needs of the city to address the ongoing needs of the city. Remember, some of the actions in this budget are one-time, and the City Council will need to revisit and make tough choices again next year, as we know PERS and medical costs will be going up next year by similar amounts. But yet revenues are not projected to be maintaining at those same levels. So we will be in a similar boat once again next year. Per the City Council's request, staff is also prepared to go over the current and proposed CIP projects. One of those areas that has been affected in our CIP budget is our IT funding for projects in fiscal year 18-19. At this time, even though we had last year told the council we were going to be on a very strong IT improvement program, because of the city's finances, we are not providing any general fund funding for IT this year as far as new projects. We're asking IT to completely utilize the funds that were appropriated last year to finalize the projects that we had started last year as well. This will be reevaluated as part of the 19 and 20 budget. So next year we'll reevaluate the IT needs of the organization. But I know one of the ones that concern the residents is moving forward with the upgrades to the agenda software as well as the system in here, and those are funded with PEG funds. So that project will also be moving forward. Lastly, I was asked about the opportunity to issue or refinance bonds as an effort to address our city's finances. Unfortunately, both Ms. Lancaster and I have spoken to financial institutions who will not do any bond issuance or refinancing until we resolve the structural budget deficit that the city is facing. There is an opportunity as we move forward with adopting the budget that we'll be able to restructure those bonds in the future. And most of the bonds we've already restructured are part of the bonds for the redevelopment agency. That's been completed. But there has been some talk about refinancing the bonds for the BKK site, which is the golf course bonds, as well as the bonds that were issued on the community center. So we do have a couple of outstanding bonds that could be refinanced. I think this summarizes the items for discussion. I'll turn over to Ms. Lancaster, who is going to talk to you about the formal presentation and some of the recommendations. Ms. Lancaster.
Thank you. Just wanted to do a brief review of what the City Council has approved as of June 11, which was the last previous budget workshop. So a total of $948,434 of cuts were approved by the City Council. And we had done a, as you can see, there's a 9260, it was an adjustment for the commission stipends that were for Human Resources, Planning, and Community Services Commissions back to 2012 amounts. Everything else were all the 10% budget cuts that the departments presented to the City Council and has been approved, and it has been incorporated into the revised budget. And the revisions by staff after the June 11, we went back and looked at a little bit more on the, looked back at revenues, and there's an additional $116,000 revenue. We had to decrease the franchise fees due to updated projections by Athens. And we went back and did revisions to expenditures. We increased personnel budget due to MOU amendments, increase in fire personnel budget, a decrease in community services due to Orangewood daycare closure. We increased police overtime budget. We decreased fire overtime budget. There is an increase in the animal control costs. The BICEP insurance premium has increased, and there's an increase in professional services for accounting services. And we are eliminating the general fund transfer to police service groups. This is a non-operating expenditure for a total expenditure increase of $838,528. And the total increase in the general fund operating deficit, when you net those two out, is $722,528. I wanted to give the council a brief overview of where we have been since May 14 to where we are now. The first column is the preliminary budget that was originally presented to the City Council. We were looking at an $8.6 million operating deficit and a general fund deficit of $12.3 million. On May 14, at the City Council direction, we did this adjustments, which is a decrease to the operating deficit. And on June 11, the adjustments that we have made on the revenue and expenditure detail is worth $285,000, a net of $285,076. And the details of this are in the staff report that has been given to the council. It's on page 4 for here. And on June 11, City Council direction, we had done a $1,400,000 $48,434 adjustment to the operating budget. So from May 14 to June 11, the operating deficit went down to 6.1 million, and from 12.3 million of the general fund deficit went down to $7.5 million in June 11. And after June 11, we have made adjustments, staff has made adjustments, which are on slide number 3 and 4 that we have just presented to you.
What are you talking, do you have, I don't know, what slides are you talking about? What paper are you talking about with page 4 and 3?
The staff report.
Here's in our packet? This one?
The staff report.
Oh, that one, okay. I was looking for something bigger, okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, I mean this one here, okay.
Right. So if you would like to see the details of these numbers, they are presented in the staff report. And on this column, these are slides number 3 and number 4 that we had just gone through. This one and this one.
That's different.
And that is not
different
it.
than this.
And that's page 6 and 7 of the staff report for the detail.
Yeah.
Okay. And so at this point, this is where we are. We have an operating deficit of $6.8 million and a $1.6 million that we need to replenish the general fund reserve for a general fund deficit of 8.4, almost $8.5 million. This is an updated vacancy list, which are funded in the budget that we're presenting to the council as we speak. This has been updated based on all of the other directions that we have gotten from the city council. Did you want me to go back, Councilmember Spence?
That's not in our packet, though.
No, that's not in your staff report. This is an updated list of current vacancies. And this is the police officer staffing levels from 13-14 to the proposed 18-19 budget. And this is an overtime analysis. This is a very simplified calculation on a very complex analysis because of the complexity comes from the different provisions in the MOU for each of the bargaining units. But this is an average. What we have done is we based it all on total of all salaries of each category. So let's just say for police sergeant. And we divided that by the number of the officers of the police, number of police sergeants that there is. And then we multiplied that by 2,080 hours, which is the hours for a full fiscal year. So we did that for police and the same methodology for fire. However, for fire, instead of multiplying that by 2,080 hours, it's 2,922 hours. So as you can see, the average hourly rate for each of each category are in this column. And when we did the average overtime rate with Medicare and workers' comp, it'll be this amount right here. The average salary, this one right here, as I said, it's quite complex. It includes uniform and holiday pay because that's where it says in the MOU. And then the average overtime rate right here does not include the uniform and holiday pay. So if someone was trying to see, let me just multiply the average hourly rate by 1.5 because that's the overtime, it is not going to equate to this because there are some things that are not included. I just wanted to mention that. So it's not a straight calculation. But as you can see, if someone was to be hired, it's $193,784. But if it's going to go for a full-time on OT coverage, it's 206,000. And so on and so forth for each of the different positions. We wanted to present to you the PERS costs, the actual costs that we've had. Unfortunately, for this fiscal years from 13-14 to 16-17, PERS did not separate the unfunded actuarial liability, so we were not able to give that information here. But in 17-18, which is when they started to give the city that information, we have provided them to you for projected 17-18 and for proposed 18-19. For 19-20 on forward, these are all based on the PERS valuation report, which is based on their valuation as of June 30, 2016. As you can see, the PERS costs are really accelerating. And it's because of the unfunded liability. If you can see the normal cost, it's pretty much contained, but the unfunded liability is really where the increase is coming from.
Mr. Mayor, if I can add, that does not include if PERS reduces the discount rate any further either. And that will have a significant increase on our PERS rates as well. If anyone's not familiar with the discount rate is, that is how much of the rate of return CalPERS makes on their investments. And so based on these projections, it's at 7% now?
Yes.
And so if it goes down anything below 7%, they do come back to the cities and ask them to make up the difference.
So at this point, for fiscal year 18-19, these are what we need to close the gap: an operating deficit of 6.8 and to replenish the general fund of 1.6 for a total of 8.495008 or $8.5 million. At this point, the staff will be needing City Council direction in closing the gap, and I would ask the Chief to come down and address the Council for this slide.
So the slide you see before you is the proposed cuts that we did not have the opportunity to share with everyone at the last council meeting about police. This does not equate to a 10% cut. Police department, in order to do additional cuts, something we'd have to talk to you in closed session about. But we do have some items here that we can discuss, but then a couple of the items we probably should discuss in closed session with more detail as well. This generates around a 7% cut. I also want to share with folks, as we look at reducing our expenditures, for every dollar in reduction of our operating expenditures, it in essence is $1.17 towards closing the gap. So we get more credit for reducing expenditures than we do for increasing revenues, just as a reminder.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. This slide reflects the proposal that the police department put together in response to the request for a 10% reduction. So going down the line, number one, we're looking at a possible change in the way our patrol division is configured, changing our staffing model. And so we estimate approximately $900,000 in savings. This is a new model. It's based on hours taken from last year and overtime that we looked at we could reduce. It's not an exact figure. We have, in the history of the police department, we have never gone to this type of model, so there's no exact figure for that. But that's a best estimate on the...
We're having copies made for you right now. Yes. That's something we'll need to go into closed session to discuss. Correct. So if that's something you wish to do now, we can do it while the copies are being made as well. But it's up to the city councils if they wish that information at this time.
I think we should do that first so we know these numbers, and then we can report back whatever we're going to.
Okay.
Okay. I think we got it recessed to our closed session, and then we'll do that. We'll come back.
Okay.
Just hold on, Chief. We'll be back. Oh, that's right. You have to explain it to us. Sorry. Okay, we have just returned from recess from our closed session, and we'll go forward with our council meeting.
We're going to bring the PowerPoint back up for the public and the council, and we'll have Chief Taylor continue his presentation.
Thank you. So with number 2, we would either freeze or eliminate 6 vacant police officer positions. We currently have those unfilled at this time. They're vacant. So that would be a savings of the $750,000 on that. Our part-time positions on number 3, that would be a combination across the entire department. We have several duties that are being filled with part-time police, part-time officers, such as background investigators, some of our cadets, and part-time records clerks. So we would make adjustment to those hours and back those. Due to the elimination of the police officer positions, are reducing the background investigators would be prudent as well. So number 4 would be reduce investigation follow-up, and that's a combination of our detective bureau and our special enforcement team that does our major narcotics investigations. We would look at scaling back the overtime that's used in those investigations, prioritizing the open pending investigations that we have going, and just tightening up that level. Obviously, it could result in taking longer to investigate and close the crimes, but we feel we can manage that. So number 5 is reduce training to post standards. Current post standards for police officers is 24 hours of training every 2 years. Our department has traditionally always exceeded that standard. It's one of the reasons we attract a lot of laterals. Our liability is lower because we train at a higher level. So during this period, with our budget constrictions, we would have to back off on that training. A lot of that training does require overtime backfill. We would prioritize that training for perishable skills and post mandates so that we're current and all officers would be compliant with post standards. We currently have a forensic specialist position that is vacant. That's a non-sworn position. We would hold that vacant at this time. In the future, we do have contracts with other police agencies to do a lot of their forensic work. Should we be able to increase those contracts, we may look at bringing that specialist back to handle the work volume, which would make it cost neutral. The materials and services, just looking at, a combination across the board, whether it's ammunition, whether it's paper, pencils, all the small little items, making small cuts across the board so that no specific area is impacted. And then I think we already talked about the victim advocate being paid out of a different fund. And then number 9 is eliminating the AB 109 task force. This is a part-time venture that we work with other police agencies in our area. It's usually on an overtime basis. We put together a task force team. They go out and try to find the serious offenders and that are not in compliance with AB 109. and that have warrants, parole violations, and arresting them. So we would eliminate participating in that task force. And then finally, number 10, fund the police department explorers from the Community Services Foundation. That's just a budget transfer coming from a different fund. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. If we do number 1, might that free up some of the overtime in doing the post-training?
Probably not. This is, that deployment, the change of the deployment model would be specifically for the overtime used to backfill vacancies in patrol.
Okay, so that's all that
yes.
is. Okay, thank you.
Is there any more questions for the Chief?
I guess I have a question is that, we talked about some of those things in there, but we don't get, we don't say whether we sign off on them or not, or how we don't do that because of the closed session stuff. Is that right?
No, we can actually, if you want to, you can adopt as a slate the changes based on the direction we've received in closed session, and I'll let the attorney address if there's any specific questions. Or if there's items that you wish to have removed.
Well, I don't think there was a consensus in closed session on all those items.
It was my understanding that we were going to be moving forward with the necessary steps to implement all but the last one.
Number 9, all but number 9.
The elimination of the AB 109. Correct. Yeah.
So is that what you're expecting? Is us to move and to do that, or?
We think we've received direction from you to move forward to implement those as part of our budget. So unless there's something different. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you. All right, Judy, you want to continue with the presentation?
The next department that we have is the fire department. There are fire fees that we would like to implement as new revenues. And one is the business inspections, which will generate about $67,700 if implemented starting September. And an emergency incident billing that will generate a revenue of $206,000. And there are two options. We can either eliminate one engine, which this only reflects 6 months of savings because it requires a meet and confer for $880,500, or a firefighter model, which includes elimination of one engine. And again, this is only for 6 months savings, and it does require a meet and confer for $1,077,500.
I want to go back to the previously policed budget. Okay, we don't have a 5-0. I think we have a 3-2 and 4-1, right? So we don't have all the consent.
Yeah, no, no formal vote, but and again, we have consensus to move forward on direction. But you are correct, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. It was not all 5 of you in support of the items. Yes.
I have a question about, what did our stakeholders say about business inspection fee? I'm sorry. What exactly is that, and what's the emergency incident billing that's different than what the council agreed to do with the fires showing up? What's the difference?
I think Nicole's coming down, or not? I'm sorry. I can address the the incident fee, and that is, we've seen that other cities, when there's a car accident in town, police and fire respond to it, and either the time for directing traffic, any of the expenditures for plan out any of the equipment, or those, they actually charge the insurance companies, but they do not charge the impacted individuals. So if the insurance companies do not pick up the cost, they do not charge the resident or the business owner, whoever is impacted. They just charge the insurance companies. Yes. And so that was a fee that the chief was able to obtain from a couple other cities that were looking to help close the gap with and looking to do that where it wouldn't seek any kind of penalties towards if one of our residents was involved in an auto accident, just our insurance company if police or fire services respond. Right. There, of course, I mean, the attorney mentioned in my ear that there are some restrictions, so that will come back to you as a future report. Because again, there's a couple other fees that are being proposed in the budget, the technology fee that we would need to bring back at a future meeting after we have a public hearing to adopt those fees. So those will probably be something that will be brought back to you in the next 30 days. They have, so we're looking for direction if they are interested in signing off on this one.
Business inspection one.
I'll let Russell, he can come on down and help address that. Thank you, Russell.
Good evening. In terms of business inspections, the understanding that I have is the fact that we are currently not inspecting businesses other than when we are doing when there's a tenant improvement or whether there's a new change of hands in terms of ownership. Other fire departments are actually doing a business inspection of all businesses just to make sure from a fire life safety standpoint that the business owner completely understands that they shouldn't block exits, that they should have their fire sprinkler systems tested, etc. Right now, or currently, this fire department is not doing that type of work, and the suggestion is that we copy other fire departments in the region and do business inspections for all types of businesses. This topic, if approved, we would come back with a city council staff report to present more of our understanding and findings at a later date. Currently, it's just an idea.
So the idea is with our existing staff, obviously, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't be a revenue thing, that apparently have time to do this. We'd show up at some business, say, we're here to inspect you, and then we would charge you them for that benefit? Is that the idea? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct, yes. We do that for business licenses in essence as well.
Yeah, we're business friendly.
And it would be, we would create a position and the net increase or the net revenues actually generated is up on the screen. That's the net, the cost of the position.
Wait, we create a new position?
We would.
Well, then I don't understand the saving.
The net increase is the revenue generated above and beyond the position is $67,000.
Okay, and who does that go to? Not the person doing the inspections?
That goes to the general fund.
And what type of person
it's a
is this?
entry-level fire inspection.
But that exceeds the cost of us being able to do that inspection program, though, doesn't it? Wouldn't that fee then, if we make a $67,000 contribution to the general fund, doesn't that exceed the cost of implementing that fee?
I'd have to look at the calculations.
I mean, because I thought there had to be a calculation on that if it exceeds the amount, associated with that government function, that, that requires a vote. Am I wrong on that or not?
I'll have to look into it further. We'll bring it back to you.
We'll look at it before we bring it.
Yeah. We're just getting consensus that the concepts are something that the council is interested in doing.
Did we used to do this at one time?
We may have. When we were fully staffed in fire prevention, now we're down to 2 part-timers.
And when we did it, did we charge back then, or you don't know?
I don't recall. We'll get all that information for a follow-up report if the council is interested in doing these type of programs.
Okay, so we hire a new staff from the fire department to inspect, the business. So if they don't in compliance, so we fine them. So that's how it's our revenue generate to our general fund. That's why you propose.
We are looking for compliance before you're looking for the fines, but yes.
The fines, though, right? We charge them for the inspection.
We'll do an inspection fee as well.
Yeah, so there's a fee when they show up, then they get charged a fee for the honor of being inspected. And if they're out of compliance, then they get fined.
Okay, and then
normally we would issue a notice to bring them into compliance.
So how many times? Yearly inspection or quarterly inspection. So why is the fee? Why is the procedures? If you want to do this to our business, we have to know why you try to impose to the business community. Is that feasible? Or is it really just a gouging?
My understanding is that it'd be once a year in terms of the annual business inspection. There's two classifications, business and mercantile. In terms of the classification of the California Fire Code, that would include things such as nail salons, supermarkets, and essentially every single business type within the city of West Covina.
So how much you propose to each of the business you're going to inspect? How much inspection fee? Okay, and then in compliance, okay, you want them to change this and that. How much are you going to charge them for that?
We haven't done all the research yet, but from looking at other cities, the inspection fee is usually around $100 as just a fee to do an annual inspection.
So meaning the business community, not only they have to pay the business license fee, now they have to pay for the inspection from the fire department.
Correct.
Anything else you want the business to pay?
That's later on the agenda, but yes. All right, we'll continue, Judy. There's been discussions for the ongoing firefighter model and the change in the staffing in the fire department. And there's two different proposals there. We've been working with the Fire Association and with the council on this, so we're looking to implement one of those two models. But I don't know, how much more can I discuss? Nothing else, can I? Yeah. Okay. And then the next item is Public Works. We're looking to restructure the Public Works Department, which does require some additional discussions with their unions. And then we do have the Discover brochure, which the council asked us to bring back for consideration. And I think that was maintained at $63,000 for the 3 editions. Nicole, how many editions of the Discover are we doing? 4 at this time. So that was a proposed cuts for community services. If you want to eliminate it altogether, if you wanted to look at maybe doing it twice a year or 3 times a year, but that's the cost for 4 editions per year. So we're looking for direction from the council on that as well. Then we're going to have we'll have a separate discussion on the business license ordinance and the MOE in a second. I don't have any direction on the first of the fire fees. Is there any consensus on 1, 2, or neither, or both? Yeah. So we're looking for direction under item number 1 at this time. The rest of the items, we've got direction from the council.
So we ever have this kind of fee imposed to our business community in West Covina?
I can't answer the business inspection fees at this time, but we can find that out for you.
So if we don't, this is a new fee imposed to the business?
I think we used to do these, and there may have been a fee associated. I think if you give us direction to move forward, we would bring back the historical information on that with the report.
Can you bring it back without us taking a vote that we want to do it? Bring back the information with more information if we've done it before we make a vote on it?
Certainly.
Sure.
I'd rather have more information if we've done it before, what it was. I don't want to give a blind saying, yes, I want to vote on something like this without knowing what the impact is.
I would agree with that, and I'd also want to make sure, I mean, I can't see charging a 2,000 square foot business $100 and a Macy's $100, so I'd like more information on how.
Certainly, what we'll do is we'll see those other cities that Russell referenced, what they do.
If the council's going to do that, I want to know how we're able to generate $67,000 of the general fund above our costs of implementing the fee.
We'll bring you full information on the proposed fee.
No, I really have a a problem with this. The reason is that basically this is like we want to balance the budget. We want to, okay, not for public safety. Okay, you say, hey, we need to inspect due to we didn't inspect the business potential to have a fire hazard. Okay, so we from the point of view of public safety, and then that maybe makes sense. But now because we want to increase our revenue, so we go over there and charge them $100, and no matter it's a 500 square feet of a salon or 5,000 square feet of office building. So how we justify that? I think this is a problem. Okay, I have. So for me, I would totally disagree with this agenda, this bill, or this proposal.
Is there a consensus to bring back more information or not?
Completely disagree. Do we have a census just to bring it back and talk about it, not to okay it and not to pass it, just to talk about it?
Yeah, I'm willing to bring it back, talk about it, or see other alternatives to make up the $67,000 if there's a better way to do it.
Okay, I believe we have a census of 3-3 to bring it back. Not that we're agreeing to pass it, but just to bring it back and talk about it. All right.
That's correct. And then emergency incident billing.
Yeah, we have a census on that one.
Okay.
What does it? We have to have a vote on it, right? Or do we? Do we already have a census?
We just need direction because we'll have to bring it back to you for the full approval.
Which one is this now?
Emergency incident billing.
Because I can't.
Insurance companies.
Okay, good. Because I can't read it from here. It's
That's
too
okay.
blurry to me.
It's on page 7 of your slides before you.
Oh, okay.
City Council direction on closing the gap under fire fees, the second bullet point. Emergency incident billing. That's for
okay.
police
I
and
don't have a
fire
problem
services
bringing it back.
related
Okay.
to.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that one. All right.
Okay. All right. We have consensus in to bring that one back as well. All right. But that's not for additional information. That's to move that forward. Is that correct? Okay. Okay, let's go down to the Discover brochure. Do we wish to continue all 4 editions, reduce it to, yes, Mr. Warshaw.
I had asked to look at maybe getting someone to try to advertise it more. Have we done that yet? And they would do it on a commission basis?
I see Ms. Bresciani coming forward. I'll let her respond.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council, and staff. Yes, we have looked into that. We've reached out to a contact through the GWC, and we are awaiting final information in terms of whether or not he's interested in doing that. The concern that we have is that he may not, he already does a publication, and so he may not want to do an additional publication that may rival what he has. In addition, we do currently have a contract with our vendor to do, and we have a termination clause for sure, so if it's the council's will, we can move forward and look in that direction, but we are awaiting more information from him. No, we haven't terminated the contract for the Discover? No, oh, you mean independent? No, I'm just saying that we have, currently what we would be looking at doing is having a contractor do the Discover along with the ads. Correct, yeah.
And do we have any idea when we might hear back on that?
We're hoping to have it wrapped up in the next couple of weeks, so he's got a couple jobs that he's working on, and then we should have information back.
So personally, I'm not willing to do any cuts until we hear back on that.
I agree with that too. I think we ought to hold off until we get some final information on it. Okay? Okay, thank you.
The next one, Judy and I, we can address questions together. We have re-agendized for your discussions the business license ordinance amendment. What this is restructuring the current business license program we do currently have and asking for council to consider it because it does generate between $1.7 and $1.8 million of new general fund dollars, which will offset the costs and further cuts needed to balance the budget. And then lastly is what was called.
What was the input from our business stakeholders on that?
We haven't heard anything from the business stakeholders on that. Some have actually, but yes.
So you're going to agendize this one, okay? Because right?
They're doing it again.
So
No, we've already agendized it, so we're asking if the council has any change in direction, because this does require to be placed on the ballot, and it needs to be done here in the next couple of weeks, or we won't be able to put it on the ballot.
I think we went through this last time, right?
We have gone over it.
And then, so you already voted down, so you want to bring it back again?
I'm bringing it back because if not, we're looking at additional $1.7 to $1.8 million, which would be including additional cuts to police and fire services.
Tonight is not the time to discuss about detail what's the impact to the business, right?
No, if you wish to bring it up, we're welcome to do so.
So we have to agree, should we want to bring back or not? And is that
if you're able, if the council has direction to bring it back tonight, that would be wonderful, so we can get it agendized before it's too late with the ballot measures. Otherwise, we are going to have to say that that will not be considered as part of the budget, and we'll have to go back to the departments and ask for an additional $1.7 million in cuts.
I understand, okay, we can bring maybe $1.7, $1.8 million of, okay, the money into general fund so we can balance the budget. But I don't know what's the impact to our community, especially for mom and pop. Okay, so when you do last time we discussed this is for growth, okay, their income, and based on that to charge each of the business. So have you given us all the detail what's the impact for different business?
Yes.
For the big business, for the small business, okay, for mom and pop, because West Covina 3,000-4,000 of business predominantly is mom and pop business. We have a couple of big ones, but everything is a very small restaurant, okay, and salon, okay, barber shop, and this and that, a restaurant. So now we want to impose this one. I don't know how you, okay, to get this number, for example, to get those gross income, okay, gross revenue, and we base on it to charge them. Compare with currently we doing per how many employee, am I right? So in that way, why is it different? Last time you say possible some of business will reduce of the fee, some of the office, okay, will go much higher. And can they afford this increase of business license in West Covina, or they will move their business out of West Covina, okay, then we don't even have a potential sales revenue. So the impact that you need to let us know, rather than just blindly tell us we are going to have $1.8 million, okay, and this income will still continue if it's a business move out from West Covina. So this is the information I need. Otherwise, I will be, okay, if I don't have that, I don't know how to bring this back.
So we have presented that as part of the original presentation from HDL. They made this presentation to the City Council about 2 months ago. And so this has been brought back to you for that discussion. If you wish for us to provide that to you, we'll be more than happy to provide that again.
I remember that day I asked a lot of questions, but all the answer is very vague. Okay, it doesn't give me the pinpoint what's the impact to the small business. Okay, what impact for the business in West Covina? Okay, we have potential this income from based on them, but here is a collection agency. Okay, they get a percentage from our income for the business license. Of course, they want to see increase. Okay, this and that. But my point is this: what the impact to our city future? I'm more worried about the impact for our future rather than we just get the potential, okay, this $1 million, $1.7 million. You cannot even guarantee we can collect this money.
Right, so they actually are not a collection agency. They only get $12 per license in the city. That's all they get as their administrative fee. But they're doing that already today. All this does is, so the number of licenses is not anticipated to change, so they're not making any more money off of it. All this is restructuring our current structure to match that what other cities are doing. And if the council wishes to bring it back for further detail, we'll be more than happy to do so.
I know it's very important for us to get this $1.7 million so we don't have a further cuts. So the pressure is very intense to us. Okay, but the problem I worry about is what the consequence. Okay, for us just say, okay, go ahead. Okay, we increase their fee. Okay, then we want to increase their fire fee. We want to increase this fee. Or how can the business continue to survive in our city? You have to see what we can recruit the business come to our city rather than we using a lot of things kind of discourage. Another comparison is how many our surrounding city using this method. Okay, so meaning we compete with our surrounding city. So business will come to Covina or go to the Devon Bar or go to Warren or come to West Covina or go to the La Puente or El Monte. So what we have when we put this thing, okay, and to charge the business community, and we discourage them to come to our city, and we will lose revenue rather than increase revenue. This is what, okay, I'm worried about. It's not like when you get a very rosy picture, we can increase this, and what is the impact, okay, to the community? Can they continue to produce for us? We don't want to kill the golden goose. That's my point.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like this brought back to us and what the fees are based on the different gross amounts so that we can take a look at it. Again, this would be voted on by the voters of West Covina if we decide to do this. But I think it's something that we do need to take a look at, see what type of fees we might be looking at for our businesses, and then make a decision.
I'm willing to listen to them. I'm willing to detail, okay, and I'm willing to listen again, see what I missed, because last time I say no. Okay, I want to make sure, okay, what kind of impact, okay, so I can second it, okay, bring it back, but doesn't necessarily, okay, I will still go with that, okay, but I'm willing to come back, let them to present to us in detail, see let's make sense or not. So I second.
What is our time limit that this go? Can we wait till the following, not tomorrow, but do we have another meeting we can go to?
We have July 17th. When would it need to be posted on?
I just want to make sure.
We would have to, if the council's directive was to move forward with it July 17th, then we'd have to start calling special meetings in order to qualify for the ballot.
I don't need to hear it again, just so everyone knows. I do, I kind of wonder how this stuff keeps coming back, though, if there weren't enough votes to move it forward, time and time again. And I understand maybe it's, staff need to do that, but I also don't understand how we can include in the budget a tax measure that needs a 2/3 vote of the people of the city in November. I mean, I don't think how
actually it'll be 50%.
This one is only 50%? Okay, well, even that, how can we include that if it hasn't passed yet? We have no idea, I just don't understand how we can include that in this budget process if it hasn't been approved by anybody. I just don't understand how we can include that as revenue anyways. I don't see how that wipes it out, because to me, while we can do all kinds of things that are fantasy in order to make the budget balance. We can declare everything a diamond mine, and then say we're going to, tax the diamond mines a lot of money, and we can do all kinds of stuff that's fantasy, but people have to vote on this, and to include it in the budget now doesn't make any sense to me. I just don't understand, how that, what budget guideline or policy does that make any sense in?
Well, again, if the council direction was to do the ballot measure, we would provide different alternatives to make up that $1.8 million or $1.7 million difference if it was not adopted. So that would be part of the discussion as well before it was put into the budget.
I'm sure all those things will be public safety.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. Do we have roll call, please?
Spence?
No.
Toma?
Aye.
Warshaw?
Aye.
Wu?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye. Passes 4-1 to bring it back. Okay, thank you. What's next?
All right, the last one is the delete the maintenance of effort. Yes, sir.
So next time when this bring back, we still need a super majority for this, right?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not done yet with this slide. All right, so the next item is to delete the maintenance of effort, which is called MO for Senate Bill number 1. Senate Bill 1 is the gas tax that has been increased. It is on the ballot in November to be repealed. Currently, this fiscal year, the city is paying $567,000 to receive 6 months of gas tax, which is estimated to be around $800,000 to $850,000. So the idea is in this year, if we were able to, if the current fiscal year is to try and see if we can just return those funds and keep the general fund dollars, or is to, for next year, is to cut the maintenance of effort with the possibility that the Senate Bill 1 is going to be eliminated in November. And then in November, if it is adopted by the population to continue, then we will reevaluate the general fund contribution towards transportation, because next year we're slated to get $1.8 million of transportation funds. But in order to get that $1.8 million, we have to spend $567,148 of general fund dollars. And so the idea is we're going to eliminate it out of the budget and then reevaluate it come November if the voters keep the gas tax in place. Consensus on that question?
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that makes sense because I think we have to, but just to understand, we don't know whether or not, by not doing it now, whether we'll have that ability after November?
That's correct. We're working with the State Controller's Office to see if we can return the funds from this year and keep our maintenance of effort monies for this year. So in essence, that would be a $1.1 million savings instead of just the $567,000. And again, we're not sure we could do both of them. And then there's been some conversation that we're working with state controller's offices. Well, if you don't collect it this year or next year, when you go to collect it in year 3, you're going to have to pay for the retro of all 3 years. We're like, well, that doesn't make sense unless you're putting that money aside for West Covina in the future. So we're trying to get that all clarified. Because I think what's happened is you're hearing that other cities are in the same situation, that they're talking about returning their maintenance of efforts. And we actually are hearing that some of the state legislators would even have a discussion about changing the requirement for the maintenance of effort if it wasn't for the fact it was on the November ballot. Because I think that they realize it's being problematic for cities.
Okay, we have a census on that one. Okay. What else do we have?
I'll let Ms. Lancaster take over on slide number 15. Slide 15, please, Judy.
We have tried to identify all the known costs that we have that we could put into fiscal year 18-19 and any revenue that we might have. However, there are still pending items that at this point are unknown, and those are the following in the slides, the MOUs that are still outstanding contracts, but at this time we cannot determine any of the costs. So if any of this gets into fruition, those are not included in the budget numbers. And for fiscal year 18-19, that is what we have so far. But we also need to address anything after fiscal year 18-19 because we still have an ongoing structural deficit. And so a long-range plan is still essential. I just wanted to give you a brief outlook on what the general fund reserves would look like in 18-19 if we were to do the cuts that were presented before you. We would have approximately 3.375 in the general fund, unassigned general fund reserves. But as you can see, the following fiscal years, you will be seeing negative numbers. And that is because the PERS costs for, again, the unfunded actuarial liability comes into the picture. And revenues are not really keeping pace to those costs. And this is where we have that the City Council consideration. If there was a city sales tax of 0.5%, there will be an estimated revenue of $8 million. Currently, the city's sales tax rate is 9.5%. And at this point, the LA County, we can have 10% in sales tax without having to have a special legislation. But if the County of LA or any other districts in LA County would instill a sales tax of 0.5%, then we will not be able to grab that difference of 0.5%. We will have to go to special legislation. And as you can see, with a 0.5% of a city sales tax, the unassigned general fund revenue looks good in the first 3 fiscal years, but going down, it is not keeping up to the PERS cost again. So we still have the structural deficit that we have. And if it was a city sales tax of 1%, which we will have to have a special legislation because then that will be a 10.5% sales tax rate. It's above the 10%. This will take care of the structural deficit. So just wanted to show you the difference between a 0.5 and a 0.1 sales tax, city sales tax revenue.
These figures include the changing of the mall stuff on the mall. What year is that? The mall sales tax?
I believe that's in August of 22, so it does not reflect that.
So the 22 numbers on don't reflect that?
22 will be about $1.5 to $2 million, we believe.
And this is a list of all the cities in LA County that have city sales tax.
I had a question on that. Doesn't commerce is only apply to the Citadel and the casino? I thought they did something where it just applied to the Citadel, the outlet mall and the casino.
They may, because I do know they receive a lot of money from the casino for the
No, but I mean,
operations
they
of the
just
city.
applied the sales tax to that area, not the entire city, I think, or something like that?
I'm not sure on that. We can look into that if that's what you like.
I don't know. No, I mean, I mean, I think their logic was that they didn't want to, you know, that those are used by a lot of people from the outside and didn't want to, you know, whatever, yeah.
And just as a caveat on the city sales tax, the reason why staff considered presenting this to council is because sales tax is going to be burdened not necessarily on the residents of West Covina entirely. It will be all the people who shop at the city of West Covina who live in other cities. And we have a listing of all the CIP completed projects in fiscal year 17-18. I will not bore you with reading every single one, but here's a list of them.
And this goes back to the council asked for an update on the current projects, as well as a brief discussion about future projects too.
That's quite a list. And this is for 18-19 capital improvement program of $8.4 million. We have the detail of this graph if council wants to see the detail of the $8.4 million. Nope. Okay. And at this time, we would like to have a tentative schedule for the 4th preliminary budget on July 11, and also on the 5th preliminary budget, if needed, on July 19.
And I think we've been told that there's some conflicts from the council, so we'll have to come back to you and find out another date that all 5 council members are available.
Okay, before we decide on that, I want to do something different that we've never done before. We had a resident that did come up and say, you know what, we should be able to look at the slides and then come up and give some comments. So at this time, I want to open up public comment again. If any of the residents saw anything they want to ask questions about, you're more than free to come up and ask your question, and then please, when you get done, fill out a card for us. Please.
Just one quick comment or two. I agree with your concerns on the business stuff. Business is important. The police, I think the slide said, it sounded like eliminate. It should be defunded. It should stay, but just the 6 or 7 police positions should stay, just not fund them. So if circumstances come, it's just easier to bring them back. Thank you.
Bill Robinson.
Thank you.
I'm mainly concerned that all city employees be able to weigh into this process without getting a bad name. You know, there's city politics and there's also on-the-job politics too. And I want to make sure that a process is implemented so the council can receive advice from anybody in city staff without worrying about getting fired or getting a bad name. And, you know, there may be efficient cuts available and open it up to the whole city of West Covina so you guys can really get a lot of public interest information on I don't want to kill the golden goose that was mentioned here. I want the budget cut in a way that is most efficient. And, you know, so I've made my point. I just want you to get the information you need without killing the golden goose.
Please, Chris, come on up. Please state your name when you come up.
Chris Miller. One thing that hasn't been discussed, I know it probably can't be discussed in open session, is salary amounts, because now mind you, the numbers I gave, a lot of the information was redacted from Transparent California. I know we have more than 59 officers, but that was what was given. So if Baldwin Park is paying at a lower rate, has more city services with less employees, what's going on? The other thing is the sales tax. I know people that live in Long Beach and don't shop in Long Beach. I'm looking at buying my wife at MDX in the next couple of years. There's going to be a negotiation tactic with other dealers, but I'd have to seriously look. Do I buy in West Covina or do I go elsewhere? I mean, these are real things that residents will look at. Unless you can get a sweetheart deal where you lower the price below the sales tax on big items, we're going to suffer.
Anyone else? If I have no one else, then I'll close public comment. What's council's?
I think Mr. Robinson does have a point of, supposedly we're going to send out surveys to all our stakeholders and stuff. If there's a way to do that, and people can remain anonymous, some people would feel more comfortable perhaps giving ideas if they have that. I don't know how we can do that. I mean, obviously, people can contact us, individually. I know my email doesn't go through the city servers, so the city won't find out you did it. But I don't know if there's a way that we can functionalize it so the city can do it. Is there? Or?
Well, I know we have a hotline that actually information comes in for, fraud or other things that remain confidential. That information goes directly to the city attorney's office. It doesn't go through city staff at all.
Right, but that's for fraud and stuff. He's talking about ideas that like restructure, there may be people that have an idea. I know we had talked about doing something earlier like this when I was mayor, but, we weren't able to do it. But have people, be able to present ideas on how to cut the budget, from their own departments.
Anybody could go to the library, open up a Gmail account with any odd name in it, and if they don't want to have their name known. But certainly most of the employees are represented by associations, and those associations are always free to take the input from their employees and pass it on. We have been affirmatively asking all of the associations to please give us ideas on how to address this budget hole.
Yeah, but associations are different than individual employees. An individual employee may say you could restructure a thing here and it may be a vacancy that goes away. An association may not necessarily sign off on something like that. So, I mean, there are issues like that.
And we've encouraged employees to present. There was talk of having them present to a panel, but we got feedback from the associations that they weren't interested in moving forward with that. So that's why we chose not to at that time. I'm visiting Transparent California right now, and none of the salaries or benefits for the city staff is redacted. So if you want to come, well, again, if you want to come by after the meeting, I can show you that all the numbers are on the website.
In addition, I just wanted to point out, we do have a suggestion box that is available that any employee could submit that doesn't require them to identify themselves.
Yep. Do you want to think? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, we already closed the public comment. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, when you're talking about sales tax increase 1%, it's that last time we already voted down. Okay, we are not going to talk about that. So when she bring up this sales tax increase, and then you get all the comparison, what you imply, want to bring this back to us, so we have to vote again, or what? What is this about?
No, so we're not bringing that back to you. The council's been quite clear on that measure. It's something that I think the council is going to have to look at for the future, because with the cuts that we have being presented tonight, and depending what happens here in the next couple of weeks with further cuts, we will be in a similar situation next year where we have to make additional cuts or find revenues or a combination thereof. That's the only way we're going to be able to balance the budget.
And last time I already mentioned, that the sales tax increase, let basically you are going to kill the golden goose, because my office in Temple City and the same, and the wholesale, right over there in El Monte, and they have a 0.5% higher than anybody. I don't shop there. I shop Glendora because City of Industry they closed. So I will need to drive over there just for the principal. No, for the same. Same club. So one of my points is everybody potentially will do this, and plus if you increase 0.5% or 1%. The people don't buy car over here. Okay, and how can the revenue we're going to reduce? So let me finish. Okay, you can follow me. You can disagree. Okay, but I would be totally disagree to raise the sales tax. Okay, and the business tax. Okay, business license fee. I can listen to see what I'm missing. But the sales tax. Okay, for me as a businessman, this is going to kill the business. Okay, what I see. Okay, El Monte, the didn't tax become richer. El Monte still have a problem, no matter how you increase. So in that way, no matter how you bring it back, as long as my vote, I would say no.
I understand. I think more of the point is that we know that other agencies around us are going to be raising taxes, and you will have increased taxes at the county. We already saw that with the homeless issue. We've seen it with transportation, and they will eventually take what's remaining on the sales tax out there. So it's the question is, does the city council wish to have it where the money comes to West Covina, or is it money that goes to other taxing entities like we saw with Measure H? Yep.
I want to weigh in a second a little bit. And we've already discussed it, but I just want to say, Covina doesn't have, they are going to have it on their ballot for 0.5% tax rate. That's already, the council's already okayed it. So it is going to be on the ballot in November for Covina on the sales tax.
So if I can just add on, one is, have we had a chance, or I don't know if the council wants to look into, like I mentioned with the sewer tax, having a tax on the ballot, if there's a, that would apply just to the city of West Covina, if the county passed a tax, then West Covina's tax that would implement, and that way we would get the money instead of the county, for that. I don't know if there's consensus for the council to have that looked into if that's possible, but it would only be triggered if the county stuff went through, then it would trigger the tax. We would be there in order to make sure the county didn't get the money we did. And I don't know if that's an issue that may be possible, but and the second thing is, as far as the tax increase, and this includes the other one, is I'm not sure someone could tell me what a majority of the council's done to justify getting more money from people and spending it. Why would someone give us more money? I have no idea. And so I just, I don't see why someone would give the council majority more money at this point.
Councilman Thomas.
The issue again is that it's the voters who would decide. It's not us. And when I came on in 2013, I think everybody ran on public safety, and so the first thing that we all did was hire more police officers when we could, when the revenues were there. And so I think there were something like, it was as low as 80 something at some point, and then I think maybe it was like 90 budget officers in 2013. I can't remember exactly. We got up over 100, right? Because the revenues were better. But then PERS started asking for millions of dollars more every year, and we have more, the demographics of our city employees, you have more retirees, and all that adds costs. So what I heard back in 2013 was public safety is very important. 75% of our budget goes to public safety. You talk to some other city council people around here, and they're pretty amazed that that is the case, because I don't know anybody else around here who has their own police department and fire department, which has retirement costs attached to it, who doesn't have an additional revenue stream, and who also doesn't have some sort of sales tax or other kind of tax to do it. So it's a choice that the voters can take. We won't make that choice for the voters, but do we think that the voters would support public safety? I think they actually would, because I had heard from a number of people that was important. Our actual residents are very supportive of our police department. And so you hear this constant talk about, well, no, no, we're not going to do this, no, we're not going to do this. But at some point, you have to make a financially responsible decision, or at least give the residents a chance to vote on that. We're not imposing it. We don't have the power to impose it upon anybody. But if you think public safety is important, you can't say that it's important and then not give the voters a chance to fund it. So you can pretend that these expenses, these increased PERS expenses, increased retirement expenses, increased medical costs don't exist. You can pretend that that's the case, but that doesn't make it go away. So this is an issue that we're going to have to deal with at some point. I wish that there was a magic bullet. I would love to take actually these ideas from any resident. I would welcome them. No one should be afraid of getting punished or anything. I would love to see any kind of idea, and we do have these workshops to do that. And if there's a way to do it even more anonymously than we do, that's great. Let's get those ideas. And so we have those budget workshops. But this is not a some sort of magical thing. I mean, there's straightforward revenues and expenses, and so there's no magic bullet to the whole thing. And we do know, because PERS has already told us, here's how your expenses are going to go up in the coming years. We've seen the schedule. That is as certain as you're going to get in terms of what the future is. We don't know what our sales tax revenue is. We don't know what our property tax revenue is 3 years from now. And economies are cyclical, and we don't have full control over that. When the Great Recession happened in 2000, whatever that was, 2006, 7, 8, whatever, your annual revenues went down by millions of dollars just in 1 year. In 1 year. So the idea that, oh, we have time to take care of it, it can happen very quickly depending upon what happens with the national economy. We don't have full control over that. We have things that we're trying to do. You know, there are certain things that are going to be in the future that are going to be coming along, but there's no magic bullet that we see for sure that we know is going to happen. So the point is for me is, you know, to the extent that we think public safety is important, the voters should have that option to decide that. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck making that decision for them, because we're going to have to be.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, okay, I think basically is this. Okay, we don't have a revenue issue. We have a spending issue. The spending is our expenditure is our major issue. Okay, no matter how much the government, no matter how much money you give to the government, they spend it. Yeah. Okay, you give to them more, you raise the tax, okay, you raise utility tax, you raise the sales tax, I guarantee we still cannot balance the budget. We will continue doing this route, no matter how much money you bring it to the government. The major point is how we spend what we have, how we control the spending habit. We like a bunch of alcoholics who continue to want to spend, because your money coming in, you spend it. Last time we had the $300,000 from Athens, they go to the Twilight Zone, go to the general fund. We have nothing. We don't even have any of a community event, because we spend it into the general fund. It's disappear. So how can we control our expenditure? That's our issue. How we spend the money. Well, okay, if you go to the budget, you adjust, we have a $5.6 million increase of personnel. So we have a personnel increase next year, $5.6 million increase. Predominant, I can guarantee it's overtime. So how we control, okay, this overtime? Public safety, no matter how you do it, they continue to increase of the service call. Okay, the number will increase. I said it, okay, so many times. And then we're going to reduce, okay, the personnel, okay, and reduce the staffing, and meaning what? Okay, the call coming in, they still have to go, no matter how you say slower the service, okay, and now, okay, you want to send people or less people to work on the increase of the request. Now, meaning what? Overtime. Personnel increase 1.5 times or double times. So let us continue to eat us alive. I say, how we control this, how control spending, let we have a look into it. Okay, and how we can freeze of our salary, okay, currently till, okay, our development coming in, okay, cavalry coming in to rescue us with their money, maybe 2 years, 3 years. But in the meantime, how we balance the budget and how we control expenditure. Otherwise, next year, we will do the same thing. Again, no matter how you raise your sales tax or utility tax, I will guarantee it will be the same thing. So I think the go back to problem is not about, okay, raising taxes. Okay, see, in California, we're raising so much taxes. Do we get richer? How about El Monte? They increase the 0.5%, or even Covina, they temporarily get this poison, okay, and get this, you feel good, okay. I can guarantee 2 years later they will find another tax, okay, to tax the resident. I think that our residents already been taxed way too much. Right now, what we have to do is we think about, okay, something out of the box as a business. Don't think about just cut, okay, and continue to reduce our service. How can we increase our service? We maybe have a short-term loss, but can we do the long-term gain? Now, I said it, we should increase the public safety staff rather than decrease and cut. Because in that way, okay, we can reduce over time. Then we have to look into it. And I've been telling the police, give us analysis about new hire compared with overtime. With that, then we can see what the spending, okay, problem we have. Other than that, otherwise I can guarantee, okay, you will never end up raising taxes. And I don't think the resident can take it anymore.
You mentioned the city of Covina put a sales tax, is putting a sales tax on in November. They have a utility tax. They've raised it several times. They don't have their own fire. And yet they couldn't even put their senior center had to borrow stuff in here. It's clear the amount of taxes isn't the issue. It's the way it's managed and the way it's done by the city councils. And what city councils continually do is tell residents, scare them into voting for these tax increases. They don't put anything else on the ballot. We're not going to put a spending limit on it, are we? We're going to put, we're not going to say, hey, we're going to set salaries for our employees through a vote of the ballot, are we? Of course not. We're just going to tell them, if you don't do this, you don't get cops. That's what we do. That's what city councils across California continue to do. And if you look at Covina, they should be, oh man, they don't have their own fire, and they have this big utility tax. It should be great. And now they're doing the sales tax. That's the future of everyone that does this. The fact we don't have a sales tax and a utility tax, and we have our own police and fire is actually, I think, a very positive thing to be a resident in the city of West Covina for. And so, it's disingenuous to say, if we just let the people decide, because we're going to try to scare them to death, and that's what we're going to do.
Okay. Before we close, I know you said we have a tentative agreement for July the 11th and the 19th. Was that what brought up, did we say?
I believe there's conflicts between council members for both dates, so we will try and reschedule a sooner date if we can. But
let's do it. Let's do it now.
Okay.
Let's do it now.
Yeah.
We've got stuff we still have to do, right? The budget policy, and we still have the continuing resolution, right? Meeting's not over, right?
We do.
Because the continuing resolution ended today, right?
Yes, sir. We need to, yeah, we
right, so
need
where
to
do we
take
go from
action
there?
on that. But there's no reason we can't select dates now.
Let's go ahead and schedule the next meeting and we keep on going. All right. If you have a conflict you have, let us know when we can do the next one.
Well, when's our next meeting normally?
We said the next one was for July the 11th.
Yeah. And then we have one
for the workshop?
17th.
Okay.
The 9th, the 10th?
July the 9th.
The 10th sounds bad for some reason, but
having it not on Monday is probably a little bit better, so staff be better prepared if it's just a week out.
How about July the 10th? We have any conflicts on July the 10th?
I think there was a problem with it.
It's on a Tuesday night.
What about the 12th, that Thursday? We have the Greater West Covina ribbon cutting.
Wait a minute. What's wrong with the 10th first? What's wrong with the 10th first?
It's Tuesday.
That's on a Tuesday.
Planning Commission is in here on the 10th.
So what?
Kick them out. They're only appointed. They don't accomplish anything anyway.
They get half the money anyways.
Yes, you can kick us out. That's fine. We do have a public hearing that's been noticed, so I think we can figure out a way to do that and move them to another location. So if that's the situation.
And we'll make cuts to planning while Jeff's not here.
The 10th, I had an issue on the 10th. It's not my calendar though, but there's something that's on the 10th. I get a 9th.
Okay, so I've heard the 9th and 10th there's conflicts. How about the 12th, Thursday 12th? We have the Greater West Covina reception at 5:30 to 7:30, but if we did something here at 6:30, would that give enough time to visit GWC and come over?
It doesn't matter. I can do
So Thursday the 12th?
I can do
12. 6:30 or 7?
6:30, just 6:30. We won't say 7. That'd be great if we could get done in 30 minutes, but.
No, I didn't say 6:30 to 7. I said it started 6:30.
That's the day of our annual employee awards.
Because you have the GWC cutting ribbon awards, and we're going to make that say over there for 45 minutes and come over here. It's up to you guys.
So what time?
I'd say either start at 6:30 or 7 for the special meeting.
6:30 Thursday.
I can do it either one time.
I'm done.
Okay. You have a sense of a 6:30 on Thursday? All right. That's the first one. You just want to do one at a time, or you guys want? You said you want to do two. You just want to do the one and decide on another one afterwards. Or what?
Let's figure out that meeting first, then we can decide.
Okay. So we said Thursday the 12th at 6:30.
Okay. All right. So are we okay doing the continuing resolution until that date, or would you like to give us some more time? Well, just so everybody understands what we've done administratively, any changes that the council's given direction, staff has been given the direction to assume that those changes are in place. So that way we try to capitalize and maximize any savings on any of the expenditure cuts that we've done this year. So that means as of July 1st, we've already given direction, for example, in the planning department, that they will no longer have part-time salaries for their employees. So there's other things like that that we're starting to implement already.
But we're still spending at a rate higher than we should.
Until we got a balanced budget, yes.
So then, what's the harm in just freezing everything that, all the spending except for the current people that are working there?
I think we're saving more by implementing the cuts already.
Well, I'm talking about doing the cuts, but I'm talking about just freezing everything else.
I guess I'd be asking what that is, because we've already frozen, we're not hiring anybody else other than the ones we've already shared. Would that be the finance director and accounting manager?
Well, we're not hiring a finance director in the next week.
Actually, there's an offer out there now.
Congratulations, Judy, on that.
We wish Judy would stick around.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Chris is ready for her to come home, though. Yep.
I mean, but what spending is going to be going on in the next little while that we couldn't stop?
Well, I guess the question is, what are you looking to stop?
Well,
that would be the other question I'd ask.
I mean, I just would stop everything. I would just freeze as much as possible.
Okay, well, we've got contractual requirements, we've got salaries to pay. I think it's easier to say we're going to continue paying other than what areas we've cut. Because that's the areas we're going to be spending money on for the rest of the year anyway, if we're not cutting it. If we've already given direction to make cuts to certain areas.
I'm fine doing all the cuts. I didn't say I didn't want to do all the cuts. I'm just saying, what else can we do? That's what I'm asking you. What else are we spending money on that we can cut that we can at least freeze until the next meeting?
I understand that, but
that's what I'm asking you. That's what I'm asking you.
What else are we
You can
bringing up
freeze
to talk
anything
about
you
tonight?
want if you're willing to have us be sued for breach of contract.
And I'm not prepared to do that. What else are we going to be talking about tonight that we can move forward on?
Well, we've already got direction on the items tonight that we're moving forward on, so we'll start, staff, as of tomorrow, we'll start implementing some of those in concept until we have the budget adopted. I'm not sure what else we could freeze or cut between now and then.
Well then, what's the plan to make up the deficit then at the meeting on the 11th?
That's what we're gonna have to find out. On the 12th.
The 12th, I mean, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So on the 12th, we're gonna have to come back and we're gonna have to have additional cuts throughout the organization. So we still have a few $1 million gap after tonight.
And so when I look at when I get the list of the POs and stuff, what is going to be spent during this next week or so?
I can't answer that. You're gonna have everything from park maintenance to attorney bills to staff salaries. So yeah, it's just cost of doing business.
Can we come back earlier? Can we come back earlier?
That's fine. We're not gonna be able, I don't think we'll be prepared with the cuts.
No, I mean, because that's my question. Am I going to see stuff in there that we could have put off or not decided not to do over that time period? If I look at those POs, because it's not just the regular cost of business, it's everything that we've, we approve up to a certain level, people can go get stuff. I'm just asking, I mean, I don't understand, there's got to be stuff that's other than the cost of business, that we're going to be doing.
I mean, I don't feel comfortable saying we're going to freeze spending in the organization because there's going to be things that we're going to have to spend money on, and I don't want the council to say, why did you spend money on that?
Okay.
If it's something that's been authorized as part of last year's budget and it has not been cut, or taken the position that we're moving forward with it until it's cut.
That's what I'm talking about. The stuff that we're able to freeze that was authorized in last year's budget, that we can at least freeze until the meeting on the 11th.
12th.
The 12th, I mean. Why do I keep saying the 11th? 12th.
I'll defer to the council.
As for myself, I'm willing to keep moving forward on this. I think what we're doing right now, discussing a lot of stuff that we're not accomplishing anything on. I would like to see us keep moving forward as it is right now, and we got to pay the bills. Bills have to be paid. So we'll have another meeting on the 12th, and let's go from there. And that's mine. If any of the, anybody else have anything to say about it? If not, let's just move forward with it. So is there anything else? Or are we done?
There's a couple more other items.
Please go forward.
We do need to have a motion, a formal motion and a vote on the continuing resolution.
I have a question.
All right.
If we don't put a budget in time, so you guys just won't get paid, right?
No, City Hall will shut down. City operations will shut down.
How about public safety?
Everything shuts down.
So including the police, everything. So if we don't have a budget, everything shut down, including the police, so everybody go home.
Everything.
Okay.
Okay, let's move forward. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion.
No.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
To July 12th, the continuing resolution?
This is 12th of July.
Okay.
Okay, we have a vote.
Spence?
No.
Toma?
Aye.
Warshaw?
Aye.
Wu?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye. Move forward for 4-1. What's next?
The budget policy, so I have a great idea, if you guys will entertain me. And that is, we know that the budget policy is new and that we're not going to be in compliance with all the items in the budget policy. So why don't we adopt the budget policy after we adopt the budget this year? And it'll be our target for the coming year to get everything in line for next year's budget consideration.
Do we have a sense on that? I don't have a problem with it. He's okay. He's okay? No. Okay, no, and Councilman Spence? Yes or no?
So we'd want to vote for a policy that would force us to delay the budget even further? Like, what would be the point of that? Yeah.
That's not, well, how
But
would it delay
not,
further?
if you're
How
saying
would it
we're
delay
not,
further? How would it delay further? We don't even know
Yeah.
for sure what they can do or not yet either. I just want to know that, so we know, but there's the standard, the balanced budget part in there I think is very good. There's other parts in there. I just don't, I mean, Mr. Warshaw also didn't want to put it off.
Yeah,
So,
but you're going to get that information. You're going to get that information.
Am I?
What's the point of getting that information if it's not to actually act on it?
Well, that's
I
the
don't
whole
understand
point.
I don't understand the point of wanting to do it, getting the policy done before this budget, which we need to get done, obviously, right? So what's the point of getting it before this budget unless you thought that somehow we need to act on that budget policy before we enact this budget?
Okay. Yeah, so I don't see the delay part.
All right, as we move forward, I think we have a census 3-2 to move forward that way. Is that right? Yep. Okay. Okay.
All right, that's it for our staff.
3-2. Okay, are we done? Okay, I'd like to, if any other final statements by the council? If not, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Yep, so I see you tomorrow again.
Okay.